Cole, where do you get nowadays new inspiration and creativity?
Inspiration is a far more a result of like sitting your in the seat and putting in work than it is to like have some mystical idea hit you from like the ether. Like we've gotten to the point where it's like content overload, right? Like there's too much content out there, and so we have to be a little bit more selective. And I think that a lot of people are valuing this type of thing, right? A little bit more intimate and connected.
Your personal brand is the biggest leverage you can have, period.
Have something that identifies you, and I do think it helps because what's up, everybody?
What's up? Welcome!
Hey.
How you guys feeling? Nice, great. Great to be back, huh?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Nice. How you doing, Cole?
I'm doing good. I was a little hot earlier. It's been a little warm out here, but I've cooled down and ready to go.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, guys, welcome to a special event. Thanks for the intro, Camilo and Sarah. We're going to have a lot of fun today. And it's the second time actually we're doing the live podcast. Last time was like also crowded like this, was blasting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're very, very excited. And we're going to talk about secrets of storytelling, right?
We are indeed. All the secrets. Yeah.
Okay, you guys excited? Nice. Okay. So then let's get into it. Cole, I have a couple of hot takes. We discussed some spicy stuff last night in the sauna, right? Uh-huh. And we want to share everything with you guys. So my first thing is, your personal brand is the biggest leverage you can have, period.
Yes, I think broadly, yes. I think the way things are shifting, like the more of a personal voice that you have, be it if you're representing a company or yourself or whatever, I think this is where like the big leverage is. We talked a little bit about eyeballs, like eyeballs are sort of the currency of everything. And if we think historically, like, television for 50 years had all the eyeballs, so they had all the leverage. Print ads for 100 years had all of the eyeballs, so they had the leverage. I think what's interesting about now is that we all can curate our own eyeballs, so you in some sense can have your own leverage. And so, yeah, the personal brand or the personality of your brand, I think, becomes the most important leverage now.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know Cole, who doesn't know Cole?
Oh, you don't have to put him on the spot. They're gonna be like, I don't know who this guy is. Who is this guy?
Okay. So just let us give you a little bit of background. You're an award-winning director from Canada.
Yeah.
Doing this since like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And you came over here to LA long time ago, right?
Yeah, I moved to LA about 20 years ago from Canada. This was before social media, and the goal was always just directing. And back then you had to be in LA, so I got a lawyer, did the whole thing, moved out here, started editing, and early in my career I got jobs just because I was the only guy that owned a camera, because back then it's just like DSLRs didn't exist. And so I started my career as a director, working in beauty, a lot of dance. I have a background in dance, so I did a bunch of dance stuff. And then
also a skateboarder?
Yeah. Well, that's what got me started filmmaking, was skateboarding. So do a lot of active things, skateboarding, dance, and that led into doing like beauty stuff and working in music out in LA. And then somewhere along the way, I got a job doing the slow-mo camera on the red carpet, which is probably where a lot of you might know me from, the Glambot. And so that kind of took my career to a new level in the sense of like it put my face kind of in the content. I was always like, my social used to not be my face at all. It used to just be my work. And then I started posting the behind the scenes, and this kind of like just turned up the notch and kind of curated my own personal brand somewhat inadvertently. I wasn't like trying to be front and center, but I was just sort of showing myself at work, and it turned into a whole thing, which has been great.
Yeah, and you're talking about the good old days. Uh-huh. When was that one point where like your audience like really grew? Was it like one day where you get like a couple 100,000 followers?
Oh, I woke up to 1 million new followers one day, which is crazy. So, but this is like the perfect storm, right? So I decided to take social seriously in like 2017. So I noticed like content creators were getting jobs that I would want as a director. And I was like, wait a sec, like I would do that job, right? So I kind of was thinking like, okay, if I look 5 years in the future, where are we going to be? Are we going to be more on like digital social or less? And I was like, well, obviously we're going to be more. So I can take time to focus on this now and look at it like an aspect of my career. And like you got to think in like 2017, I think a lot of people weren't really taking social super seriously. Like we would have it, it'd be fun, but I was like, okay, like every week I'm gonna sort of like allot whatever certain amount of time to social. And so that's when I kind of like started playing around with making content, and that's when I started bringing BTS cameras to do the Glambot. And that's where I started posting. I guess I really had it dialed in like 2019 was when I started doing the BTS stuff. And so my content was like brand new, and it was like this behind the scenes look into the red carpet with these like candid discussions. And then COVID hit, and like we're all sitting there, and I have mountains of Glambots to cut. So I'm literally just like editing Glambots. Also at the time, this is like when everybody's getting on TikTok, right? So we're all at home. TikTok sort of becomes a thing. Everybody's signing up, and my content is brand new on TikTok. Like every 2-3 days, there's a new video with some big celebrity, and it just sort of started catching on. And then one day, I mean, I don't know if the total was it might have been pretty close. I think I had just hit 6 million on TikTok, and then I went to bed. And the next morning, I woke up, it was 7 million. It was crazy.
That's
a little nerve-wracking, a little
That's
bit,
wild.
to be honest.
But yeah, one thing I want to point out here, it's not about the content itself, it's about the BTS, about the behind the scenes. And that's what's new, because people saw that Glambot before, right? The slow-mo camera and stuff. And of course it helps that you have Taylor Swift, Brad Pitt, everyone in front of your camera. But having these little candid emotional moments, they are the reason people watch that video for 60 seconds and not for 2 seconds, right?
Yeah, it was a little eye-opening, right? Because I would post, like, I'm getting hired by E and NBC to like direct talent and like make these slow-mo videos. So like the product is the slow-mo video, and I would post those on social, and like they do fine, they do be like cool, like you get some views, but really like it was the behind the scenes that really took off. And it was a surprise because I just didn't really, not that I didn't understand it, but it was just sort of like, I didn't expect it to just do so well. You know what I mean? And I spent a long time trying to figure out like, hey, like, what is it about this? And I do think it is sort of like, it's this candid discussion that you typically don't get to hear. Like when you're on the red carpet, you will hear an interview with someone and they'll give you their press answer for like, oh, I'm in this new movie and like, it's great. The director was great. And like, it's cool to hear because you get a little bit of like the nuance of their personality, but I think that it's a little bit like rehearsed, right? But when they come to me, they're literally like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm like, well, I don't know either. Like, we're going to figure this out right now, right? So you get this sort of like immediate, candid conversation that you just don't normally hear. And I think that has an aspect to it. And then the before and after is a big thing too.
You're actually feeling for you, right? You're actually feeling for you. Like when I watched you, and I saw the video today, which you posted of Taylor Swift, and she comes on there, and you said like, hey, good to see you again. And we're like, hopefully she remembers him. Hopefully she remembers him and hugs him, right? And she did, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is always like, I mean, these superstars, they meet tons of people, but you're also pretty recognizable.
Yeah, the hair helps a little bit, yeah.
What role does the hair play?
I mean, it plays a big role, I think, to be completely honest, right? But it's never like, I didn't grow my hair out to like try to have some identifier thing. Because actually when I first started doing red carpets, it was tied up. Like I'd have it in a bun because I was like, well, I'm at the Oscars or the Golden Globes or whatever. Like I need to be formal. This is like professional, obviously, right? So I'd have it like in a tight bun. And then I don't even really know why I started having it out. Maybe it was just during the content. I don't know, but I let it down, and then all of a sudden, like people were commenting. I was like, well, I have to keep it now. I mean, now I really have to keep it. So, but yeah, I mean, I do think it's good to like have something that identifies you, and I do think it helps because I know people. Like even talent see me and they're like, oh, it's the guy with the hair, right? Like if I just had a standard haircut, I think some people would be like, I think that's the guy from last year, but like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But now it's like pretty obvious just because like, it's not like there's another guy with big curly hair doing slow-mo videos, right? So.
Yeah, speaking of recognizable things, whoever owns that red BMW from the 80s out there, like shout out to that person.
We were admiring it. Yeah,
we were looking into that. That was a good car. Yeah. that's definitely recognizable.
Yeah. I do think like when we're talking about a personal brand, like, I mean, I do think that like it is important to stand out, right? But but you do have to balance it. Like, I'm not advocating that you just find some wacky, crazy thing to do. Though I guess that like could be an approach. But I do think that, yeah, like if there's something that sets you apart, whatever it might be, I think that's a good thing to like lean into. I guess I would say, like, if you have something that sort of is an identifier to you, it's fair play to like just turn up the volume on it. I wouldn't say like go do something like just out of the blue or like left field just to be different. But if obviously everybody has something that makes them a little bit more unique than the other person, figure out what that is and then just like turn up the volume a little bit on it, I think.
Yeah. Where do you get nowadays new inspiration and creativity?
I don't know really, like everywhere, nowhere. I don't know. It's a tricky question to answer. I think I personally think like inspiration is a far more a result of like sitting your ass in the seat and putting in work than it is to like have some mystical idea hit you from like the ether. I find if I am feeling uninspired, I sit down and I put in work and I relate this a lot to like writing, because writing is like a thing that's like challenging. There's a lot of like personal struggle and angst to like sit down in the chair and like write. And more often than not, I'm like not super inspired to do it. I'm like, I know I want to, but like I my head's on emails or other jobs or whatever, and I might not feel inspired. But if I sit down and go, okay, I set aside like an hour to do this work. I'm not getting out of this chair for an hour. And if I have to just proofread what I've written, then I'm going to just, like, that's my punishment for like not wanting to work, right? So I'll sit there and I'll like proofread or like just make some typo fixes. And over time, like 15, 20 minutes of like getting in my head and getting in the flow, I then like find the inspiration. That happens way more often than me like being out doing something and being like, oh, I have this idea that I have to go work right now and get it all out. So I prefer to look at it like a function of it's a result of like working, not a result of like finding something that inspires you to go do your best work.
I think it's so interesting how it's different. For me, I have to leave the office to get a lot of inspiration. I have to go to a Starbucks. I have to get on a plane, and on a plane I get the best inspiration. I always want to impress people and showcase how busy I am, so I pretend to work, and then I actually end up working there.
Well, that's literally what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sitting down and proofreading, like pretending to work, and then suddenly you start doing actual work.
But you sit in a comfy chair, and I sit in 37C.
Whatever you got to do, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting, but sometimes you just gotta change the scenery, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like as far as I mean, it depends. Like, are we talking about like habits to do like your best work, or are we talking about like finding inspiration? I think like finding inspiration is just like it's this intangible je ne sais quoi thing. It just kind of happens, right? But I also do think that like it happens as a result of like your good habits. I think that some ideas, it's rare that like I'll be sitting thinking about nothing and then an idea hits me. Usually I'm like thinking about ideas like, oh, this would be cool, or I'm like ruminating over stuff in my head. And in my brain, I'm not like working. I'm just kind of like sitting and like thinking, and like maybe I'm like doing something and kind of thinking about something, and then something will hit. But I still think you're like putting yourself in the right mental like headspace to allow that idea to come. You know what I mean? So I still think it's a result of like good habits and like work ethic than just being like magically hit with like inspiration.
Let's talk about stories and storytelling. Sitting down, writing stuff. You're director. You're also a writer. You're a jack of a lot of trades. Mm-hmm. What makes a good story?
I mean, it depends on the medium, right? I think that storytelling has changed, especially with the advent of like digital media, right? Television was a certain way to tell a story. Oh, I mean, like a novel, like oral stories, like starting way back when, right? But
we're sitting about a campfire.
Yeah, sitting around the campfire telling stories. Like there's one way to tell that story, and then like novels had another way to tell this story, and then movies had another way, plays, right? And we're sort of fortunate that there's this new medium to tell stories, right? Like through our devices, which I think is like, it's cool. In some sense, you're like, oh, you know, this short form like bastardizes like movies and things. And I will agree to an extent. It kind of does. But I also think that like this is a new fun time to tell these just new types of stories. And yeah, it's just you can do different things in an hour and a half versus a minute and a half, right? But I think like fundamentally a lot of the same things still apply. It's just sort of like how you communicate them in short form. It just ends up being a little different.
So short form is just a little bit more dense. Boat, iceberg, crash, everybody dies.
Yeah, except for it's like crash, and then you reverse in time, and then now they're happy in the boat. Then you gotta wait to the end to see. Like that's the new format, right? Like it always like movies have like this like low point, and then this like high point, and then this twist, and this always happens in like the third act of the movie, right? But like in social, you put the third act first. You put the crazy thing first to get someone's attention. And now whether this is good or bad as far as storytelling, we don't know, but this is like the thing that's the function of the medium, right? Like it's a thing that you have to do to get someone to watch your whole story. So it just changes, it just changes how you're communicating. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, it's just different.
So we learned Cole was back then on the forefront. He had a camera. That was a new thing you need to have back then. Mm-hmm. And then he saw social coming. What does Cole see now?
Oh, like what do I see coming now? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Things have changed so drastically, right, in the past few years. And again, it's the thing that changes the eyeballs, right? The eyeballs are shifting. So the eyeballs are going to streamers, are going to social, right? I think there's still a discrepancy with like the money spent as far as production goes from like traditional media to social, but like it also doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money. But there's like this whole thing is shifting, right? And I really don't know. Like I don't know if more money is coming into production for social, and then we can do these cool short form like movie type things or serialized things, or if it's like, you know, all the people on social are going to try to go into a more traditional thing and like have our own shows on Netflix. Like I don't really know, but it is exciting. There's a lot of change, so we'll all find out together, I'm sure.
So I believe a big thing will be physical communities, physical spaces, and great that we're here in one of them. So shout out Lighthouse campus here in Los Angeles for having us. I think communities will grow and grow over the next years, and we see this here. LA is often a forefront of new trends and stuff. Let's say the big run clubs, Venice Run Club, shout out, they had 5 years anniversary today.
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands of people coming every single week, right? And I believe as a brand, it's important that you have on the one side the physical touch points, the physical community, where people can relate to, where they think, oh, if I'm in LA, I can show up there. If I'm here, I can show up there. You also, we can talk about this in a little bit, because you also do a lot of challenges and like morning routines and stuff. But people want to be part of it. It's not like, oh, I'm the big influencer, I'm the big creator, and you're here, you can watch how glamorous my life on Mykonos is. It's like, hey, maybe I'm here in Minnesota, and you can come by and we run together. We do something together. So I believe this community part is very, very important. Same also when it comes to creators. You can have millions and millions of followers, but if you can't fill a room with a couple hundred people, it's worthless. Would you agree?
I wouldn't say that it's worthless, but I will say that there is something to creating community. And I think that like we've gotten to the point where it's like content overload, right? Like there's too much content out there for us to watch. There's too much content that we're interested in that we can't watch. And so we have to be a little bit more selective. And I think that we've reached this point where, especially like, you know, through the pandemic, where a lot of our connections have been online. And I think there's so many cool benefits of like finding like-minded people and like people that share the same interests and share knowledge online. Like this is all amazing things.
I mean, we wouldn't have met without meeting online, right? Or connecting online.
Yeah, well, it's through Kenny, kind of, right?
Yeah, still.
But yeah, mutual friends, but still, right? Like community, like
still email also,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Online.
I think that like we, you know, there's something to be said about like getting out of the group chat, right? And like going and doing something in person. And I think we all sort of like are feeling that. And after many years of connecting online, I think a lot of people are valuing this type of thing, right? A little bit more intimate and connected, and like we all know that our attention is just focused right here, which I think is like valuable, right? Because a lot of the times we're like scrolling, doing other things. And so I think that as a whole, like as a culture, we're valuing this type of thing. So I do think that, yeah, like whatever kind of like run club sort of event things that you can get to is becoming, yeah, more valuable, more enticing, and it's the thing that we want to spend our time doing more, right? Like we'd probably all rather be here than be at home scrolling randomly for an hour, right? So it's like, yeah, there's value to this community building aspect of it all.
How do you activate your community? You do a couple of challenges, right?
Yeah, so last year I did like a sort of like healthy habits challenge. So every month we did, for the first week of the month, we did like meditation every day for a week, stretching every morning, morning sunlight, morning walks, some kind of dietary restriction, drinking water, like all these healthy benefits that I just wanted to incorporate in my life, and I wanted to build a community to keep me accountable, really. But I did enjoy sharing these habits with everybody, and it was like a really cool experience where, you know, I'd find a bunch of research and like videos informing people of like why we're doing this thing and share it, and people sort of jumped on, and it was a really cool, fun community building thing. But it was just last year because it took a lot of time, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just focus on other things now.
You have any ideas for new things like healthy habits?
I mean, I'm still trying to incorporate all the things that I did. I definitely stretched this morning, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just always trying to find things that again, like with the habits for productivity and creativity, I think that like, you know, your physical body is so connected to your mental output. And I think what's interesting now is just people are understanding that connection with a lot of the health advice coming through the ether and culture right now. It's a lot of like, you know, you do something to your body to affect your mind. And I think that these are all good things, and I try to incorporate the ones that make sense to me. So yeah, it's been good.
Do you think one part of the success is also like showcasing the process again? Like, oh, you started that coffee brand, right? Or you do this challenge like from day 1 to day 60, and that people gonna follow you and gonna watch, and it's like, oh, I want to see that person succeed, or I want to see that person fail, or whatever. But I definitely gonna join the ride. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that is interesting and new about content now, is that like we can talk about like individual pieces of content, and we can talk about like a serialized set where you're like, okay, here's like a 3-part series. But I think what is talked about less, which is probably almost more enticing, is like the overall arc of the creator and their like life story in a sense, right? Like if you are starting a new business, this is a whole part series that is your entire channel. Like everybody social or YouTube or whatever like has this arc of the content that they're putting out. And ultimately, the people that are like following or subscribing are buying into this like long-term narrative that we, in some sense, are creating kind of subconsciously, right? Like if you're like, okay, my next 2 months, I'm gonna make these videos and like tell these like insular stories that maybe aren't connected, you're still crafting some kind of a longer narrative that people are like subconsciously following along, right? Like so if someone's watching your content, like story after story after story, they're like building this narrative in their head of like what you're doing and what you're up to and what path you're on. And I think that, we don't seem to talk about strategizing that. I don't know if we necessarily should, but it is something that like to think about, that there is a longer arc that you're creating as you're making content. And I do think that this is a thing that people buy into. Like there's people that have been following for years, and when they do something new, I'm like, oh, that's so awesome, because I remember like back in the day they started here, you know? So that's like the longest of long form, right? Because we're talking about these short form bits of content that are so small and tiny, but we also have this ability to tell this like year-long, 2-year-long, 5-year-long story with like our content, which I think is cool.
And I mean, it adds up, right? It's like it's basically like a movie, but spread out through weeks and weeks and weeks. If you see it from that perspective, I've been following that one guy, Wyatt Moss, and he ran a marathon every single week for last year in all 50 states of the United States. I think that's pretty crazy. But also was following around, was like, oh yeah, is this guy gonna make it?
Yeah.
So it's wild. But I wanna tell you one thing I read the other day, and it's people will support you when you start something in the beginning, and when you made it in the end. Neither is when you actually need it.
You think people support you at the start? Sometimes I feel like people don't give a crap, right?
Yeah. So I think like when you start something new, let's say when I start this podcast now, we have like 160 episodes in, so it's pretty good, right? But in the beginning, like first 3 episodes, everybody's super excited. Oh, that's nice. I gotta listen to it, whatever. But when it's actually boring, or when you're like in a low, like after 35 episodes, when you asked all your friends to be on the podcast, and it's like, yeah, whatever. And then when you made it again, and when you're here with Cole, then everybody shows up again.
Sure, yeah.
In the meantime, nobody's there.
Yeah.
Just as an example.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably indicative of a lot of endeavors that we do. But I also, it's like, I don't know, like I'm kind of like, for better or worse, it's like you try not to expect anything. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I always think that like no one's going to pay attention unless you make them pay attention, right? And so a part of it is like, hey, there's a new thing, like that's a reason to pay attention. And then like, hey, I made it, that's a reason to pay attention. But in between, there's kind of like not really much of a reason, right? You're like doing this thing and like,
what would be good reasons? What would be good reasons?
Well, I mean, it's like whatever leverage you're providing or whatever thing you're providing, like it's news when it's new. And then it's news when it's like a big success, right? But it's in between. Yeah, it's not really like news. And again, with everybody being inundated with so much content and things, like we all only have so much bandwidth. And I think on the whole, like we're all like who's trying to consume more content right now? Anybody? Like we all are trying to consume less, right? So it's like with all the things that you're doing and your friends are doing, like we're all trying to not consume as much. So it's only getting harder. And only more people are like doing cool shit on social. So it's like you're always just inundated with everything. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if that's like pessimistic, but I don't expect anybody to pay attention. So unless you make them.
That's good. Yeah, I need that hair. I need that haircut.
yeah, the hair helps. The hair helps people pay attention for sure.
That's good. What do you think about streaming?
Like Twitch streaming or like Netflix streaming?
Yeah, Twitch streaming.
Like live streaming?
Yep. Live stream, yeah.
I mean, it seems like people are selling a lot of products on live stream right now. I think 5 minutes of watching people on like Chinese TikTok do it is wildly entertaining. But that's about it. I don't know. Like, I think this is the cool thing I think about streaming is like the ability to really build a community, right? Because you are so, it's this thing. Like, I also think that like live media is going to sort of take over because it's like we all want something to like mean something in a sense, right? Like we all know, like everybody here is not doing anything else except for be here. And when there's a live event, like nothing else, these people are not doing anything else but like doing that live event. And when someone is streaming, when these big streamers are streaming, they're only doing that one thing. Like all of their attention is on that streaming, and that sort of inherently has some value. So, and I think just the back and forth and the way you can build a connection is cool. It obviously takes a lot of time, but I think it's one avenue to build a community and to connect with an audience. I think it's cool.
One thought I had last night was. Streaming is also popular because with AI you can't fake it that easily.
Yeah, I mean, just wait until we get the first AI streamer. I'm sure it's happening.
Speed AI.
Yeah. Because it's like, there's AI, like there's AI content creators that have huge followings. You know what I mean? Like I don't see like what's stopping there to be a computer fast enough to process AI image to talk to people and interact. Like it's gonna happen. But I think what you're saying is sort of the same thing that I'm getting. Is it's like it has all of your attention, right? Like you're doing this one thing and that's it, right? So yeah, I think that sort of is valuable in a sense.
You also work with a lot of brands and fly out to them to the glam board, do directing stuff. Sometimes as a creator, sometimes as an influencer. And I want to talk a little bit about brands, as I know we have a lot of brands out here in the audience. We do a lot of brand stuff with BDX, and I want to see it first from the positive side and then from the negative side.
Okay.
So, and I want to find with you together like 5 things that brands do great right now, or like 5 brands that successful brands do great right now.
As far as content and media go?
Content, media, positioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing that we mentioned, right, like brands having a personality, I think this is a thing that is interesting and enticing, and I get a kick out of, actually, I don't know if you guys sort of, this happens to you as well, but you're like, look at some piece of content, and then there's like brands commenting on each other's thing, but like being really funny, you know what I mean? Like they have some Gen Zer that's like just really kind of funny and fully tapped in, and they're just like making jokes about the content, and there's just like this brand talking smack to this brand.
It's actually not brand safe at all, right? It's
I mean, yeah, some push the envelope, but I think that like the ones that do it really well, it's like they like push it enough to just kind of like make you like chuckle and be like, oh, that's a really funny take for a brand. Like typically it's like safe, but I always get a kick of like brands just making jokes back and forth like under other brands' posts, you know? But I think this is like a brilliant take where it's like, I don't know if people think about it, but it's like every good comment is like free advertising, right? Because it's like if you say the funniest thing under a popular post, it's going to be one of those two comments that like show up in the feed scroll, and then it's like you have X amount of thousands of people sort of viewing, right? So I think that's like a really good thing that brands are doing, and really it's like about infusing a personality in it, because we're so, as an audience, we're so tuned into like the BS advertising. And I think it's been a long time, like brands historically have done their brand thing, right? Their commercials, their print ad, like this is what they've done for 50 years. And then when it's like, hey, social's a thing, they just like ported that type of media onto social. And we were all like, I don't want to see this shit.
They put out the same shitty TVC, like not the shitty, but they put out the same TVC ads and just made a 9:16 version, right?
Yeah. It's just like, it just is not the approach that works. But it seems like they're figuring it out now of like having a voice and a perspective. And there's a lot of brands that are like doing really fun content about their brand, and this is turning out to be really successful, because I think ultimately if we're entertained, we don't care if it's an ad or not, and that's a part of the appeal of like Super Bowl commercials. Like these are all like good little stories, right? Like and we don't really care that it's an ad. We only care that ads are ads when they're annoying or stupid or like they bother, right? It's like I don't want to see that, but if it's fun, then it's good, right? So I guess to phrase it in an answer to your question, right? Like when brands are doing engaging content, like this is really good. When they are having a POV that is engaging and entertaining, like this is really good. I don't know what else. Those are just the things that I've noticed lately, I guess.
What I think is good, I think we have 2 or 3. Let's say 3. I can have one more, and then you can have one more. I think having like a like being bold, and also being prepared for getting like a negative feedback, or like being prepared for a shitstorm or for some pushback. I don't want to say like you have to push all the boundaries, but if you're a little bit more bold, you will definitely get some more traction. And I think if you put out some stuff, I believe in 2025 you won't get cancelled anymore forever.
I mean, that's a bold statement, I'd say.
Listen to me. I want the attention.
Yeah.
I learned from the best.
Yeah, I mean, a hot take is a thing that will get some more attention, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess being a little bit more bold is probably a better way, but you do run the risk of like crossing a line, right? So, which I think, has its own risks in today's climate. So, I don't know.
Another thing I think brands do, or successful brands do good, is like tapping into communities.
Mm-hmm.
Like being active, maybe either create their own community or like tap into other existing communities. I'm talking always about running, right? Because it seems like I'm very interested in that. But whether it's a pottery class or it's a membership club or whatever, team up with them, show up, and I think that will create a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also you can build a good community online, right? Like, I think that there's some... You can look at creators or you can look at brands, and like they have these communities that like can be super, super loyal. And sometimes it's a little unclear. Like sometimes I'll look at people's content or pages and like the engagement is just crazy, and I'm always like, how do they get everybody like down to just being commenting like whatever, you know what I mean? So Yeah, I actually I think at the top level there's a little bit of kind of like a mystery or magic on how it happens. It just sort of like clicks in a certain way. But I do think like creators can create that type of like brand loyalty and connection, but brands can do it as well. I'm sure there's like best practices, right? Like obviously, you know, the POV, engaging, funny, these all things are all things that work. But to really find the super success, I think that it's just one of these perfect storms that just kind of clicks and works.
I know you do a lot of PR right now. I saw you doing a lot of interviews and a lot of stuff, and it felt like just a couple of years ago, the whole press thing was kind of dead, or like it was getting irrelevant. Nobody was buying newspapers anymore and all that. But it seems kind of like this justification and the brand of the newsletter, let's say Forbes or the Washington Post or whatever, like being in there brings a lot of street credibility back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as, again, the eyeballs shift and the trends are like not buying newspapers, like I was in the LA Times this past week and I literally didn't know how to go buy it. Like I went to like the grocery store and like the newspaper was there, but it like didn't have the section that I was in, and it was like I couldn't even buy the thing that I was like, I'm finally in print thing and I can't even get it, you know. So as these things change, I think it's you know, the world of press and print media is changing, but I do think like all of these companies are finding ways to still stay relevant and create content that we want to consume, because I still think like a well-written article is still good, but because there's, again, so much media, it's like we're not spending the same amount of time like reading articles that we used to. But as far as the street cred, I mean, I still think like it'll be interesting to see in a few more years, because I think that like a lot of the people that have success on social still kind of grew up in an era where like these traditional things like Forbes and Time and the New York Times or whatever have like clout still. But I wonder like this next generation in 10 years, like, where they don't grow up with these things being like household items, if they're going to care anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, like they're still holding on. It still matters to me. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, maybe in 10 years, the household brand will be, you had a collab with Duolingo or with, I don't know, some kind of brand, right?
I mean, it's just going to be like, it's going to be on like, oh, I was on Theo Vaughn's podcast. Like, that's the thing that we all, like, people want to do, I guess. I don't know.
Or
like,
a New Trans Society podcast.
Or exactly, on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be the thing that people aspire to do, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I do think, like, press still matters, because I also think that like from an industry perspective, like press really matters, where like the creative directors, the account managers, the heads of brands, the heads of marketing, like they're reading like trade stuff, they're reading press stuff. So like it matters in that sense, because they will look to those traditional medias for like what's trending, who's making noise, like that kind of thing. So that's really helpful, I think, in that regard. Like if you're trying to build your brand at that level, I think that being in press is really helpful. But there's an argument of being like, well, like, go build your following, and if you have 1 million subs on YouTube, then like you have more press than some online magazine, right? Like,
yeah, but I agree. It's not always about eyeballs. It's also like who owns who the eyeballs belong to, right? And if you're like a very good niche and you want to just target a specific audience of, I don't know, C-level or brand marketeers or whatever, then it's more important that 10 of them read what you write.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm sort of valuing press, right? Because the audience there is an audience that, for me in my line of work, is going to be beneficial, right? I think that, like, you know, if there's a YouTube channel where if there's 10 million followers that are under the age of 18, like, this has less value to me in my career, right? But if I had some toy I was marketing, this is like the holy grail of like where I want to go, right? So yeah, it depends on who's watching and what audience you care about sort of exposing yourself to.
Yeah, you gotta wait 10 more years to sell to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, nice. Do you have any hot takes?
Hot takes? No, you know, I've been thinking about hot takes because I love the Subway Takes Instagram where the guy interviews the other person on the subway and asks them their hot takes. So I was always like, what is my hot take? And I couldn't really come up with any good ones.
What is the next thing that's happened in the career of Cole Walliser? Is there a feature film coming out? Are you directing anything cool? What are you working on?
Yeah, definitely always looking forward. As I mentioned, been writing. Feature's always been a big goal. That was like a huge part of me moving out to LA. So that's the thing that I'm always kind of working on. Emmys are in 2 weeks. So this is exciting. The new award season is kind of upon us. So prepping for that. And relaunching a new coffee company. It's called Creo Coffee, and that should be coming. I mean, we're doing a couple products kind of this fall. So yeah, many things in the works.
And it's online, right? You can just
it's e-com right now, but as you mentioned, doing community, we want to do more community building things. The idea of Creo is coffee for the creative mind. So this is for people that wake up, have their cup of coffee, and go pursue their biggest dreams, their biggest ideas, and go be creative with coffee, which I feel like probably a lot of us in this room take that approach. So that's kind of the community I want to curate and build for this thing. And it's about just getting people together, sharing creative ideas, and going and being productive together with a little bit of caffeine.
Amazing. Cole, thank you so much for taking your time. Let's open up this discussion also to the audience. So if you guys have any questions, we probably have a mic coming around, and then just raise a hand and we find it. And in the meantime, if you want to check out the podcast later, it's going to be up on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, basically everybody where you can listen to a podcast. And please check it out. So we have the first question. Please introduce yourself.
Hi.
What's your name and what's your question?
I'm Danae. Nice to meet you. Thank you for this very enriching conversation. That was very enjoyable. So my question was that if a creator goes viral for one specific type of content, does that success become a trap, locking them in to repeating the same thing over and over again? Or is there a way to reinvent yourself while still keeping your audience engaged and loyal?
This is a good question. It's a tricky question, but I think you're only trapped if you value only views and engagement, right? And I think this goes for kind of anybody, where if you make content and your number one driving force is which got the most views, you're only going to be led down that path of doing exactly that one thing, right? And I think that is a trap, because I think that it just is a recipe for your entire world to be dictated on your audience reaction, which is a thing that you cannot control, right? So that's in itself problematic. I think for the guiding force for me is if I make a piece of content, right? Because obviously I do a lot of Glambots, but I do other things too that don't get as many views as Glambots, right? The thing that I always consider is I look at this content and I go, is this a piece of content that I'm proud of, that I like, that I enjoy, that I think is cool? And if the answer is yes, then I'm pushing it out and I'm publishing it. And I sort of know that it's not going to get as many views. But to me, the thing that I tell myself, whether this is true or not, is that it doesn't matter, because if it resonates with me, it's going to resonate with some people a lot. Some people maybe not at all, right? But if I really like it, I feel like some other people are also going to really like it. And maybe it's 1/10 of the views, but those people are going to be stoked and excited and more connected to what you're doing. And I think that it's just it just to me just sounds like a recipe for disaster, for burnout and just your own sort of misery if you're just chasing the views that the algorithm, which is also another thing that you don't control, is your guiding force. So because I don't think that, I mean, it also depends on what you want to consider success, right? If success is the most followers out of everybody, then it's okay, that's the thing that you have to do, right? But if your success is growing but enjoying the process and enjoying the content that you're making and finding the work that you're doing rewarding, then it's that sounds like a recipe for disaster. When I first started getting my following, and people were jumping on for all of the Glambots and stuff, this was this is before Reels, right? It was you could post videos in feed, but still people were posting a lot of photos on Instagram. I literally just posted I was I have to just post a selfie with some stupid caption, because I was I need to tell people that this isn't just what they're getting. They're going to get a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was worried that oh, people are only going to care about Glambots. So I just immediately tried to do other dumb, not necessarily unhinged, but just other content where it to me, it like reduced the pressure. Like, hey, like just so you guys know, it's like not all that. Another thing I will add that sort of like is a piece of advice that I give that's sort of related to this. The one thing that I've always tried to do in my content is market my personality. Like I want to just showcase me as like this fun, adventurous guy that like does these cool things, because I think if I'm successful in that, I can then go do anything and like some people will be on board. You know what I mean? And so that's even a part of like the Glambots where like it's this interaction and this discussion that I'm like sharing where I'm sort of, you know, showcasing my personality. If I do something similar with something else off the red carpet with sort of other types of people, talent, I think that some portion is going to sort of follow along. So I do think it's a concern, but I think you're better off not worrying too much. Like let what you want to create be the guiding force. Like pay attention, obviously, right? But yeah, I mean, I think you're only pigeonholed if you feel like you're pigeonholed, maybe. So I don't know. I hope that adds a little bit of clarity there.
It does. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice, amazing. Any other questions?
Hi there, Ryan, also from Canada.
Oh, heck yeah. What part?
Toronto.
Okay, cool.
So I really liked what you were saying there about like creating authentically rather than trying to chase views. It reminds me of this great media theory book called They Became What They Beheld that I recommend. But one of the things that creates with your audience is this trust in your taste, right? Rather than a specific format. And I'm wondering, you said we're inundated with too much content for us to possibly consume. What role do you have, or do people with a large following have, in kind of curating their taste, where they trust you to recommend other things more than the algorithm? And right, and like, what role can you play in kind of helping foster a certain type of taste among your community that's more, you know, freed from just endless scrolling?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and one that I probably have not given enough thought to. Though I wonder if it applies to people like I don't know how much I feel like I'm curating for my audience, though. Like I obviously am, because in some sense I am sharing the things that I am interested in. I'm making the content that I like to make or do or whatever. But yeah, I guess there's some responsibility to curate something good, but I also think that like, in some sense, I think if my guiding force is like what I find entertaining and fun, and I'm true to that, at least to the best of my ability, I think that this is a thing that will sort of materialize in the content that I'm sharing. So in some sense, it's not a thing I need to sort of prescribe or like worry about. I'm just sort of trusting that my own taste isn't dumb, and what I'm sharing is a thing that might resonate with other people too. And then it sort of takes that question off the table a little bit. Like I don't have to worry about it because I know that I'm just trying to share authentically, and I think that will help guide it. But that's an interesting thought, and I wonder if that applies to people who are more like aggregating content or sort of like more involved even in trends, right? Because I'm very much not involved in trends, though often I think like, oh, it'd be fun to like jump on different trends, but like I know there's creators that are like doing like their version of trends, and that's more of a curated thing. Like I'm doing this, I'm not doing that kind of a thing. But that's an interesting question, and one I clearly have not thought that much about yet.
Cool, nice. Any more questions? You guys have a very curious crowd. I like that.
Hi, Cole. So I love a lot of your perspectives. They have this quality of an introspective thought leader. And so based on that, I would love to know, so for the younger generations or for your audience, is there a specific impact that you would love to have?
Oh, that's another good question. Well, firstly, thank you. I do feel like I spend probably too much time thinking about things and formulating how I think and feel about the world and content and things. And so, yeah, impact, I don't know. I wonder also if that's a thing not for me to decide, right? Though maybe that's like a cop-out. But I do think that like my impact will be what it is. And I think that, again, the guiding force for me is how I carry myself, how I interact with other individuals, how I treat others, that kind of a thing. I think that will sort of my impact will be predicated on that. But that isn't to say that I don't have aspirations to have some type of impact. And I think that, I don't know, I think that like, if anybody sees my content and goes, oh, that's cool, I want to go do something, just create something, I think that is like that's almost more than I can ask for. Because like I've had this great life of like making cool things, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And if someone else follows along in some regard and like makes something that they're proud of, I mean, I think that's really cool, you know? So yeah, I think that. And yeah, sharing my niceness as being Canadian is also a thing that I want to impact into the world. So yeah, those two things. Go make stuff and be nice.
Nice. We all love Canadians. One last question.
At the beginning of the talk, you said the unique personality of your brand is the biggest leverage now. So how do you develop that as a brand?
As a brand... Well, okay, do you mean like as a me personal brand, or you mean like as a brand that is more of an actual company brand?
I guess for both.
Okay, so for the personal brand, right? I think that you do need to find a way to communicate authentically, right? Which loses some meaning. But what I mean by that is at least you need to be able to tap into how you think and feel and allow that to come out. Because I actually think that that's like a challenge, right? I think that we all think and feel a certain way, but we are worried about coming off a certain way or having to be read right or whatever the case may be. There's apprehensions about, it's like it exposes yourself to, you're vulnerable when you're really authentic, and especially like online, you're like opening yourself up to like hate and all sorts of craziness, right? So like it can be unnerving. So I do think that as a personal brand, you need to find the way to allow yourself to communicate authentically. And that's obviously going to be different for everybody, but you have to just figure out how to just get that stuff inside you and out in a reasonable, clearly communicated way, right? I just do think it's way easier said than done. But spending effort towards that, I think, is helpful. For a brand, I actually don't really know. I have less experience with that, but finding someone that you can trust that could just do it. I mean, I do really just think that like these big brands like hire like Gen Zers that are just good at and understand TikTok and things and empower them to go be engaging online. But how one goes about finding those people, I have no idea.
Right, but also they all sound the same. Like they're all trying to be the same kind of funny, the same like...
Yes.
You meaning like everybody wants to tap into the Taylor Swift trend, into this, into that trend?
No, I think you just mean like they all sound the same, right? Like when I'm like, oh, I see these brands arguing, it's kind of like the same person saying the same stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you didn't see the handle, you wouldn't know what brand it is.
Okay, yeah, true, right? But I do think that it's like in its infancy. But like, okay, counter that. If you saw some comment and you knew it was from some famous creator, like, would you be able to know who it's from? Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe more so. But I think that like it's early stages for brands having a voice online. And so I think that, yes, a lot are just sort of copying others, and you get this kind of effect where everybody kind of converges into the same type of thing. And I think like right now, it's fine. But in 2 years, when now 5 times as many brands are doing this, and the ecosystem is like everybody's saying the same stuff, the new brands come in and are like, yo, we got to do something different. We got to like figure out how to be more specific or like whatever. And then they will sort of rise to the top. But I think like right now, because it's still new, it's kind of fine. Though that's interesting that you picked up on it because, yeah, I mean, it is a bit that case where they all kind of sound like the same person.
Yeah, and I hope you learned something. Thanks again, Cole. That was great.
Heck yeah, thank you guys.